Welcome back to the deep dive. This is where we take the sources you send our way, the articles, the books, the frameworks, and really just cut straight through all the noise.
Mm-hmm.
We don't just summarize. Our goal is always to synthesize, to make sure you walk away with pure, immediately actionable knowledge.
Yeah, knowledge you can use the second you stop listening.
Exactly. And today we are unpacking a listener favorite. This is a manuscript that has clearly resonated with a lot of you. It's titled The Quiet Fire Within.
It's a beautiful title, isn't it?
Yeah.
Because it speaks so directly to the real nature of lasting personal change.
Right.
We live in this culture that just loves the explosion, the big dramatic start, the viral success story,
Oh, absolutely. The overnight sensation.
which is almost never real. But this material, it offers such a compelling case for the smolder, the slow, persistent heat that doesn't need external validation to keep itself going. It's a deep dive into genuine resilience.
And the listener who submitted this collection of principles, they asked us to do something very specific. They said, create a mental blueprint.
Mm-hmm.
They want to move past that feeling of, being inspired for a week and then poof, it's gone. Back to the old habits.
It's such a common cycle, the motivation crash.
It is. They need the foundational, non-negotiable architecture for unlocking what they call their true potential.
And that is our exact mission for today. We're taking the 10 foundational principles that are outlined across these chapters and we're distilling them.
Okay.
But we're not just, listing concepts. We are extracting the psychological mechanisms behind the foundational decisions, the daily habits you need, and the long-term perspectives that really separate high achievement from just fleeting attempts.
So not just the what, but the how and the why.
Exactly. We want to give you not just the ideas, but the actual tools to implement them in your life.
I really appreciate that focus on implementation because motivation, it's useless if it just stays in your head.
Completely useless.
Yeah. It has to translate into movement, into action. And the book essentially argues that success isn't about waiting for some lucky break. It's about carefully, intentionally designing a process that ensures you keep moving forward.
Designing the system for success.
Exactly. And we're providing those architectural plans right now.
Okay.
Let's unpack this. Starting with what it calls the most important decision you'll ever make.
Chapter 1. This sets the absolute baseline for everything else that comes after, and it does it by focusing completely inward.
Okay.
It states that the whole journey, it doesn't begin with a dramatic change of scenery, not with some expensive course you buy online.
And definitely not with a big announcement on social media.
Definitely not. It starts with what they call the quiet decision.
And what defines that decision? Because I think we've all decided, okay, I want to be better, every January 1st. And those decisions, they usually don't stick.
That's the thing. The difference is it's commitment versus just mere desire. The essence of the start, as the source defines it, is a silent agreement made only with yourself.
A silent agreement. I like that.
It's internal, it's non-negotiable, and it acts like a governor on all your future choices.
Mm-hmm.
And the beauty of this quiet commitment is that it completely bypasses the need for external validation.
Which is so fragile.
So fragile. It's often the first thing to shatter when things get difficult,
That makes perfect sense. External declarations, they're often driven by ego. Hey, look at me, I'm starting this big new thing.
Yeah.
And then when that initial attention fades.
The project fades right along with it.
Exactly. This internal agreement, it's purely about integrity with yourself.
Precisely. And the language of this silent agreement is incredibly powerful. The decision is framed as this: I am no longer available for a life that does not fulfill my potential.
Wow.
Think about that line for just a moment. It's not a goal,
Yeah.
it's a standard.
It's a refusal. It's like you're drawing a psychological line in the sand.
Mhm.
It's basically saying, that old standard of living, that low bar I used to accept for myself, I'm sorry, I have a non-negotiable prior commitment to my future self.
Yes. It's an active closing of the door on complacency.
It's so powerful.
And setting this new standard, it allows the source to challenge what is maybe the most common psychological error people make when they're starting anything new.
Which is?
The reliance on motivation. Most people, they treat motivation like some kind of, magical weather system.
Okay.
They just wait for it to strike like lightning.
Hoping for the perfect mood, the right time.
The perfect wave of energy before they can possibly start anything.
I think we have all been there. I know I have. Waiting for that perfect alignment of cosmic energy and, a bit of spare time. It's such a deep trap, isn't it?
It is the ultimate procrastination trap.
Yeah.
And It's disguised as being sensible, as preparation.
Right, I'm just waiting until I'm ready.
And the source just hits us with the uncomfortable truth. Motivation follows action.
We have to linger on that for a second because that flips the entire script of self-improvement on its head.
It really does.
If I wait to feel motivated to, I don't know, tackle a difficult project or start exercising, I could be waiting literally forever. That feeling of, I'm ready. It rarely comes before the movement.
It's the application of inertia, right? But let's go a bit deeper into the mechanics of it. Inertia states an object at rest. Well, it stays at rest. An object in motion stays in motion.
The basics of physics.
Right. And the massive hurdle for us is overcoming that initial inertia, that comfortable, cozy, resting state. Motivation is not the input. It's the feedback you get once you are already in motion.
So the action itself generates the energy, the friction of just starting. That creates the heat.
Precisely. The source encourages you to find what it calls the minimum viable action, the MVA. The smallest, almost ridiculous thing you can do to put the object, which is you, into motion.
Okay, give me an example.
If you want to write, the NVA isn't write a chapter. It's opening the document and typing one single word. If you want to clean your messy house, the MVA is putting one dish in the dishwasher. Just one. Once that physical movement is initiated, the brain goes, oh, okay, we're moving now. All right, let's find a reason to keep moving. And that reason, that's a motivation showing up.
That makes the whole process so much less intimidating. So instead of trying to find the motivation to do the entire task,
Which is overwhelming.
yeah, you just need enough personal integrity to commit to that single next step. This source argues we have to honor that feeling that brought us here in the first place, that feeling that something inside is awake, that it's asking for more courage or more growth. And that quiet request, that's the only justification you need to make the decision today, right now, to apply your full effort.
Stop waiting for the cosmic spark.
Yeah.
Just throw the first tiny piece of wood onto the pyre. That small initial action is the spark. And the friction of repeating that effort day after day, that's what keeps the quiet fire burning.
Okay, so once that quiet decision is locked in, Chapter 2 immediately deals with the inevitable resistance. And that so often comes in the form of our emotional luggage.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
The source identifies that so many people are held hostage, not by what's happening right now, but by a story of the past. A limiting narrative that we've built from old mistakes or childhood wounds or the toxic opinions of other people.
And this phenomena of being held hostage by your own history is what creates those devastating, self-limiting beliefs. These are the narratives we tell ourselves constantly, often without even realizing it. I failed that last business, so clearly I'm just not a business person. Or my parents always told me I was clumsy, so this is just how I am.
We build a box around ourselves.
We build an entire identity, a rigid, tiny box based on ancient and sometimes totally irrelevant data points from our past.
But the source reinforces a crucial distinction here, and it's one that's worth repeating every single day. Your past may explain you, but it does not define you.
That's it. That's the key.
Explain gives context. Define creates boundaries. And that distinction is the key to unlocking your freedom.
It is the ultimate intellectual freedom.
Right.
To explain, say, your current financial situation, you might need to reference some poor choices you made 5 years ago. That's context. That's useful information.
Okay.
But if you allow those poor choices to define your future choices, you are bounded by them forever. You're stuck. Successful people, they understand this. Maybe not consciously, but inherently.
You often hear that genuinely successful people are. They're often defined by their failures. Ironically, they failed, sometimes way more spectacularly than people who never even tried.
Well, that's because the distinguishing factor, as the source points out so clearly, is not talent. It's not even initial opportunity or luck. It's their absolute refusal to let the history of those failures hold them hostage.
They don't let it become their identity.
No. They view failure not as a verdict on their character, but as data. Just pure data. They extracted the lesson, they applied the adjustment, and they abandoned the emotional weight that came with it, the guilt, the shame. They let it go.
I love the analogy they provide in the source. It's extremely visual, and you can apply it immediately. Your past is a classroom, not a courtroom.
That analogy, it just fundamentally transforms the relationship you have with your own history. If you treat the past like a courtroom, you are perpetually on trial.
Always defending yourself.
Always. You face judgment. You have to seek acquittal for every mistake you ever made, and that just leads to crushing guilt and eventually paralysis. You spend all your time and energy just trying to justify or erase the past.
But if it's a classroom, The whole purpose of every event, that failed relationship, the mistake at work, the opportunity you missed, the purpose is inherently growth. It's evolution.
Exactly. If a student fails a test, the solution isn't self-flagellation or, jail time. The solution is to study harder for the next exam. You leverage the mistake as an indicator of where more effort is needed.
So that leads to the practical how-to. How do you actually release the past? The source talks about thinking the lessons. What does that look like?
It's an active, structured analysis. It's not passive. When you identify a past mistake that is causing you to be paralyzed now, you have to break it down.
Okay.
Step 1, write down the emotional weight, the guilt, the shame, the embarrassment. Get it out. Step 2, identify, say, 3 key pieces of data or wisdom you gained from it. For example, I learned not to trust hasty partnerships, or I learned I need a much stronger contract next time, or I learned the market just wasn't ready for my idea.
So you separate the feeling from the fact. You separate the emotion from the information.
Precisely. You physically or mentally discard the emotional response, the guilt, because it's heavy and it's useless. And you keep the data, because that is necessary for your future success.
That makes so much sense.
The source emphasizes that if you carry the weight of every past mistake you've ever made, you cannot possibly run fast enough toward your potential. You're too weighed down. You have to actively decide to drop that luggage. And that act of abandoning the emotional residue, it's an act of creation. You're creating a new identity that isn't beholden to the one that failed.
It sounds like an ongoing audit. You don't just do it once and you're done. You do it every single time a past mistake surfaces to paralyze you. You have to remind yourself, data only, no drama.
It has to be an ongoing commitment, that quiet decision to change. It's a daily re-up. And once we've established that decision and we've cleaned up some of that emotional history, then we need the sustainable energy source to keep moving forward.
So we've made the quiet decision. We've started to purge the heavy weight of the past. Now we need fuel. And Chapter 3 makes this really striking, powerful contrast. Motivation is exciting but fleeting. Discipline is loyal and stays.
Motivation's like a shot of caffeine.
Yeah.
It's great for a surge, but you're going to crash later.
Right.
Discipline is like eating well and sleeping 8 hours. It provides loyal, stable, long-term energy. The source is so clear about this. Motivation is essential for getting started, but discipline is the only thing that guarantees you'll continue.
I think most people struggle with that word discipline. They associate it with restriction or punishment, like being forced to do something painful. It has a negative feeling to it.
And the source tackles that head-on by completely reframing the concept. It says discipline is not punishment or restriction. It is a deep form of self-respect.
That shift in framing it's transformative. If I view my habits as an act of respecting myself, then my early morning routine or, saying no to unhealthy food isn't me suffering. It's me honoring a promise I made.
It creates an investment mindset. Discipline becomes a promise you make to your future self. And that promise is, I will do what is necessary today so that my future self can breathe a little easier tomorrow.
It's like compounding interest on your personal capital.
Exactly.
Can you elaborate on that investment aspect a bit more?
Yeah.
What are some of the specific daily acts of investment that the source highlights?
It's all about the intentional acts that defy immediate gratification. That's the core of it. So when you dedicate time to practicing a difficult skill, even when you feel clumsy and awkward, that is investing in your future competence. When you choose to say no to a massive distraction like endless scrolling on your phone or some highly stimulating but totally unproductive activity.
Which is everywhere.
Everywhere. You are not saying no to fun. You are strategically saying yes to your purpose, yes to competence. That distraction is a short-term pleasure tax. The discipline is a long-term competence dividend.
I like that, a competence dividend. That brings us to the core mechanism that makes discipline so powerful, right? The power of compounding. If these small acts of discipline seem so insignificant today, reading 10 pages, practicing a skill for just 15 minutes, why should you, the listener, trust that they actually matter?
Because the impact of compounding, whether it's positive or negative, is invisible for a very long time.
Yeah.
And that invisibility is exactly why people quit.
Right. They don't see the results, so they think it's not working.
Exactly. They expect a linear return. They think, if I work for 1 hour, I should see a 1 hour improvement. But real transformation, real growth, it's exponential.
So how can we make that numerical reality a bit more concrete for everyone listening?
Let's use the classic compounding metaphor. Imagine you commit to improving by just 1% every single day. a tiny, sustainable act of discipline.
This 1% seems doable.
Right. At the end of 365 days, you are not 365% better. You are 37 times better than when you started.
Ah, that's staggering.
It's 1.01 to the power of 365. Conversely, if you decline by just 1% every day, 0.99 to the power of 365, you decay almost to nothing.
And the difference is just mind-boggling. That 1% effort feels so negligible day to day, but the long-term result is transformative. It makes the case for consistent discipline undeniable.
The source really stresses that this daily effort isn't suffering. It's depositing money into your future competence account. The choice presented is simple but profound. A year from now, you will either thank yourself for making those tiny mundane investments, or you will experience that deep, sinking regret of wishing you had started today.
Discipline is just making the choice that your future self deserves your gratitude.
That's it. It's paying the price of entry for your future freedom.
Yeah.
And that requires courage.
Now, as soon as we start applying that disciplined effort, especially toward those little 1% improvements, fear just inevitably shows up.
Always.
It's the internal alarm system. And the source material is fantastic here in reframing fear, not as a deterrent, but as a high-fidelity growth indicator.
Fear is not some random psychological noise.
Mhm.
It's highly intelligent, it's highly localized, and it's highly strategic.
Yeah.
It shows up precisely when you're about to step outside the protective boundaries of your established comfort zone.
Right at the edge.
Right at the edge. And by definition, stepping outside that zone is the only time genuine growth can actually occur.
So what are the specific lies or narratives that fear uses to try and pull us back into that comfort zone?
Oh, the lies are universal and they're so paralyzing. They're often rooted in ego protection.
Mm.
You'll hear, "You're not ready yet," which leads to perfectionism and procrastination, or "You'll fail publicly," which attacks our deep-seated need for acceptance,
Yeah.
or maybe the most toxic one of all.
What will other people think?
But that's a big one.
Fear uses these narratives to try and convince you that the effort is just not worth the potential humiliation.
So if I'm feeling that fear, that's actually good news. It means I'm approaching something
A
important.
signpost. The source is so clear on this. Fear does not mean stop. Fear means pay attention.
Okay.
It indicates the exact location of the edge of your current competence and comfort. And that edge is precisely where all valuable development resides. If you want a different result, a different life, you have to go to a different place. And that new place is always guarded by fear. But I have to ask, what is the difference between ignoring fear and just being reckless? You know, if I'm afraid of heights, courage isn't jumping off a cliff.
Right.
When does fear indicate genuine, non-negotiable danger versus simple ego discomfort?
That is the critical pivot. And the source is focused entirely on psychological and productive fear. The fear of failure, the fear of judgment, the fear of the unknown. It's not about physical peril.
Okay, that's an important distinction.
Courage, in this context, is measured, intentional movement. It means you identify the fear, you acknowledge its message, which is usually, "I am currently uncomfortable because this is new," and then you take a controlled, decisive step forward anyway. You feel the terror and you act.
Which leads to the definition of courage they offer. Courage is not the absence of fear, but the act of moving forward while fear is watching.
And this very action initiates a crucial psychological feedback loop. Each time you push past that discomfort, each time you act despite the fear loses a little bit of its power over you.
You're strengthening a muscle.
Exactly. The psychological muscle associated with bravery strengthens. You're training your brain that this discomfort is not deadly.
And conversely, if you retreat or procrastinate because of fear, you're basically just feeding the monster.
Precisely. That retreat reinforces the neural pathway that says, fear is a boundary and I must stop. The fear grows stronger, and it convinces you that the boundary is a solid, non-negotiable wall. So the challenge from Chapter 4 is decisive. Do the thing that scares you, not haphazardly, but carefully, intentionally, and decisively.
So if I'm afraid to make that sales call, the decision is to make one call. If I'm afraid to publish my work, the decision is to publish one sentence.
Yes.
And the reward the source promises is a stronger version of you that's waiting patiently on the other side of that fear barrier.
Absolutely. You have to walk through the uncomfortable feeling to meet the version of yourself who is capable of handling the next bigger challenge. It's a prerequisite for advancement. There's no other way.
Okay, so we've established momentum now. By embracing discipline, by moving past fear. How do we keep that momentum going, especially when the initial novelty wears off? Chapter 5 delivers another one of these foundational truths that just needs to be internalized. Talent is admired, but consistency is unstoppable.
The world is just cluttered with people who had brilliant bursts of talent, right?
Hmm.
People who wrote one amazing song or started a company with a dazzling idea only to just fade away.
Mm.
Talent gets you attention. Consistency provides relentless forward movement. The source makes the case that the ordinary person who simply refuses to stop, they become extraordinary through sheer, quiet persistence over time.
It's about showing up when the applause is absent. Consistency isn't hard when you feel good or when the results are pouring in.
No, that's easy.
The source defines consistency as showing up even when the results are invisible, when nobody is clapping for you, and especially when progress feels painfully slow.
That is the ultimate test of faith in the process. If you look at high achievers, they know that 90% of their time has been in the plateau phase.
The grind.
The long, mundane grind where you feel like you're doing the same thing every single day and seeing zero change. It takes tremendous trust and a kind of non-emotional commitment to keep going when the external feedback is zero or even negative. That's sustained trust. That's consistency.
So how do we anchor that trust? It's so hard to stay persistent when your brain is just screaming at you that the effort is futile.
To combat that feeling of futility, the source provides a really powerful concrete visual, the river analogy.
Okay.
A river cuts through solid rock, not by explosive power, but by persistence.
That image provides immediate clarity. It's about sustained, relentless pressure, not a sudden surge.
Exactly. A river doesn't rely on one huge flood to carve a canyon. It relies on relentless, small pressure applied over millennia. Its power is in its constant flow, day in and day out, whether the weather is good or bad.
It just keeps moving.
It just keeps moving. It's shaping the landscape one day at a time, 1 millimeter at a time. The message for you is to embrace that geological timescale. Be the river. Keep moving. Keep applying that small daily force to your life and your goals, and trust that the compounded effect will inevitably reshape your future.
It's the daily drip that eventually fills the bucket and cuts through the rock. And the key is that the movement is continuous. It never stops entirely. It only adjusts its course if needed.
Continuous movement and leveraging patience, which we'll definitely touch on later, but consistency is.
Yeah.
It's severely undermined if the environment you exist in is actively fighting against your efforts.
That's a perfect lead-in. If consistency is the fuel and the flow, then Chapter 6 argues that your environment is the topography. It determines whether that flow creates a canyon or just pools up into a stagnant pond. And we're instructed to take a very serious, honest look at our surroundings. Our habits, our routines, the people we allow close to us, and the content we consume every day.
This is one of the most underleveraged areas of personal growth, I think. If your environment, the sum of your immediate inputs and surroundings, is just saturated with negativity, with excuses, with what the source calls comfort-only thinking.
Comfort-only thinking, I like that.
Then your growth path becomes a purely uphill battle. You're requiring massive amounts of willpower daily just to stay even. Your environment defaults to reinforcing your current lowest denominator.
I think of it as friction. A poorly managed environment creates massive friction for any positive change. If your exercise clothes are hidden away in a drawer and your snacks are sitting out on the counter.
Your environment is promoting rest and consumption. It's not promoting health.
Exactly. The counter strategy is strategic selection and optimization. You have to consciously choose environments that challenge you, that inspire you, and that actively push you forward. It makes success feel natural, almost frictionless.
It's just easier to write 500 words if your phone is in another room and your writing space is already prepped than if you're trying to write on the couch with the TV blaring.
Of course. And this strategic selection, it extends to who we spend our time with. The source really emphasizes protecting the mind from what it calls ambition drain.
We have to feed the mind with books, with expanding ideas, with conversations that genuinely challenge our status quo, and equally crucial is the necessary distancing.
Which can be tricky.
It can be, but we have to politely but firmly distance ourselves from anything that drains our ambition, that reinforces scarcity, or that constantly reminds us of our past mistakes. Sometimes that's reducing time spent with certain types of media. And sometimes, yes, it means spending less time with people who constantly reinforce low expectations or ridicule your attempts at growth.
But practically speaking, how do you handle distancing yourself from people, especially if they are, say, family or close colleagues? You can't just cut them off completely.
Well, the source isn't advocating for isolation. It's advocating for boundary setting and for time management. It's about limiting the exposure to the draining subjects. You can choose to meet a negative relative in a public setting where those deep, draining conversations are just less likely to happen. You can choose to leave a conversation when it devolves into habitual complaint. It's a strategic choice to conserve your mental energy and protect your focus.
This focus on environmental design leads directly to what I think is the single most critical insight in this entire deep dive, the part that connects goals to our daily systems.
The foundational realization that
Yeah.
you don't rise to the level of your goals, you fall to the level of your systems.
That is just profound. We spend so much time crafting the perfect goal, this massive, beautiful target out in the distance. But the system is what actually executes the goal.
Right?
If my goal is to run a marathon, but my system is to wait for the perfect day to run, I am never going to make it.
A goal is a direction. A system is the GPS that gets you there. A bad system is relying on willpower. A good system is automating the good habits.
Can we make that more tangible?
Sure, a bad system for writing a book is, I will write whenever I feel inspired, and I'll just write until the first draft is done.
Which, for most people, means never.
Exactly. A good system is, every weekday at 7 a.m., I sit in the blue chair, I turn off the Wi-Fi, I open the document, and I write for 45 minutes, regardless of inspiration or the quality of the output.
The action is what matters.
Yes. You are focusing on building better systems, not just setting bigger targets. You don't have to be motivated to follow a system. You just have to respect the system you built for yourself, your environment, and your systems. They are your greatest leverage point.
So as we commit to our systems, we also have to accept the reality of it, which is that no system is perfect, and failure is a guaranteed outcome along the way.
Guaranteed.
And Chapter 7 asks us to completely reframe failure, to change its definition in our minds. Failure is not the opposite of success. It is part of success.
The prevailing societal narrative, it treats failure as an end state, a final judgment. And that perception just stops movement dead in its tracks.
Yeah, you hit a wall and you stop.
But when you adopt the framework from the quiet fire within, failure is simply a critical waypoint on the map. It's a carrier of valuable information. It acts as immediate feedback.
So every mistake, a failed product launch, a poor performance, a miscalculation, it's not a sign that I'm insufficient. It's just information telling me precisely what didn't work, what needs to be adjusted, and where I specifically need to grow next.
And the key transformation occurs when you manage to depersonalize the failure. If you say, I failed because I am stupid, that's personal, it's shame-based, and it's completely paralyzing.
Right.
But if you can shift your perspective and say, the strategy or the system I employed to achieve X outcome was insufficient. The information I received is that the process needs a significant revision. Now that is objective, data-based analysis.
That shift from self-blame to objective inquiry, that's the hallmark of a true learner.
It is everything. The source highlights the importance of asking better questions after a setback. Instead of dwelling on the pain or the emotional aspect of the failure, why me? How could I be so foolish?
Which is so easy to do. So easy. But you must transition immediately to analysis. What can I learn from this? How can I improve the system? What is my next move? These are the questions an engineer asks when troubleshooting a malfunction, not the questions a victim asks when dwelling on misfortune.
And this requires humility. It requires the courage to look foolish sometimes. If you're trying anything new, you are, by definition, going to be bad at it at first.
That courage to be a beginner is absolutely essential for progress. Mastery always starts with the bravery to be clumsy. If you wait until you're already perfect to present your work or to start a new business or try a new skill, you're waiting until the gravitational pull of failure is eliminated, which will be never.
Right.
The source reassures us that progress belongs to those who are willing to look a little amateurish initially, because they prioritize learning over appearing competent.
So failure becomes an expensive form of education, but it is education nonetheless.
Yeah.
And it pays for itself in experience. Exactly. And once you accept that failures are simply data points, that the classroom environment applies here too, then the process requires a different kind of strength. It requires endurance.
The willingness to fail and get back up brings us face to face with Chapter 8, which calls patience a unique superpower, especially in a world built for instant gratification.
Patience is the ultimate differentiator in the 21st century. The modern brain, it expects results instantly. You click a button, the video plays, you order a product, it arrives tomorrow.
Yeah, we're trained for it.
We are. But real, meaningful, high-level transformation, it just takes time. There is no shortcut to forming deep neural pathways for skills, or to growing muscle, or to building real robust character.
And that absence of immediate results is why so many people quit right before the breakthrough. The source calls this the breakthrough cliff.
This cliff is characterized by a long period where your effort is maximized, but your visible momentum is zero.
It feels like you're spinning your wheels.
Completely.
Hmm.
People plant seeds, they water them for a few weeks, they see no sprout, and they wrongly conclude the seed is dead or their effort was futile. They walk away right before the harvest simply because they misinterpreted the necessary dormancy period as failure.
So the necessity here is just staying, watering your efforts and trusting the timing of that compound effect we talked about earlier, trusting that the daily effort is accumulating beneath the surface even when the ground looks completely dormant.
It requires a profound, almost spiritual trust in the process. We have to remind ourselves constantly that the most valuable things in life, true mastery, deep relationships, lasting health, they are non-linear and non-instantaneous. The source is arguing that the primary skill we need to develop is the ability to endure that plateau phase without panicking.
And if you're listening right now and you're struggling with slow progress, the message here is a deeply reassuring one. You are not behind. You are in training.
That recontextualization is transformative. It turns the struggle into preparation. When you're in training, you expect difficulty. You expect repetition. You expect a lack of immediate rewards. You see the repetitive nature of the work as necessary for building the foundation.
Like an athlete.
An Olympic athlete doesn't get discouraged because they have to run the same hill for the 100th time. They understand that those 100 runs are building the capacity they need for the final performance. Your current slow progress, that's your training. It's preparing you for the level of achievement you are striving for.
It shifts the entire mindset from frustration to an acceptance of the required difficulty and enduring that difficulty. It requires an immense amount of sustainable fuel. So we've built the engine of discipline, we've learned the path of endurance, but when the inevitable setbacks hit, when the motivation is long gone and the training is just painful, where does that unstoppable long-term fuel come from? Chapter 9 shifts our focus outward. It says, serve something bigger than yourself.
The source identifies a fundamental misdirection in modern goal setting. It argues that the most fulfilled, consistently driven people don't chase happiness. They chase value creation. Happiness is highly subjective. It's fleeting. It's fragile. But value creation, solving tangible problems, helping other people, contributing to the whole, that is tangible, it's measurable, and it provides an external anchor for your drive.
That distinction makes so much sense. Chasing happiness directly is like chasing a shadow. You can never quite catch it.
Right.
But if you chase valuable work, happiness seems to arrive as a reliable byproduct.
And that connection to service, it provides unstoppable fuel because the effort is no longer self-centered. If your goals are entirely focused on your own ego or your own satisfaction, then quitting when the work gets hard is always an option.
You can just let yourself off the hook.
Exactly. But if quitting means letting down the people you committed to help or abandoning a worthwhile mission, that purpose pulls you back in with far greater force than personal motivation ever could.
Can you provide a few diverse examples of this value creation? Because service can sound a little abstract, like it only means charity work.
Not at all. Value creation could be an artist refining their craft so they can move others. It could be a scientist dedicating their life to understanding a complex system. It could be a manager making sure their team is supported and competent, or a parent modeling integrity for their child.
It's about contribution.
In every single case, the work is connected to improving the state of someone or something else. The fuel source is the feeling of being needed and useful. And that feeling outlasts any temporary emotional high you can get.
So the core question the listener needs to ask, as the source suggests, is an external one. How can I use my skills to improve lives or solve a problem that's bigger than myself?
It forces an active search for utility and application, and the relationship between that external value and your internal meaning. That is the ultimate sweet spot. When your competence, the skills you work so hard to develop through discipline, is applied to a worthy cause, the work matters to others, and therefore it matters profoundly to you.
That is the engine that never quits.
Because it's powered by something much, much larger than the individual ego or some temporary burst of motivation.
And all these principles, the decision, the discipline, the systems, the purpose, they all converge on the final goal, which is outlined in Chapter 10, becoming the person who never quits. And the source simplifies the definition of true perseverance so beautifully. Success is not about never falling. It is about always rising.
That is the ultimate acceptance of reality, combined with a non-negotiable commitment to movement. The source accepts that falling is guaranteed. Setbacks are inevitable.
They're part of the process.
Part of the process.
Yeah.
But the definition of your character is defined entirely by the decision you make after the fall. The immediate decision to get back up, adjust the plan, and keep moving forward. That is what separates successful people from those who simply tried once.
And this requires you, the listener, to make a non-negotiable commitment today. Not a commitment to perfection, but to non-quitting.
That's right. And the source clarifies the terms here. Resting, taking a break, adjusting your plan, or changing direction. Those are all acceptable. They are necessary course corrections based on feedback.
But giving up is different.
Giving up, permanently abandoning the effort or the standard, is not acceptable. You commit to the identity of someone who always rises.
And this final step, it circles back so perfectly to the very first point we made about the internal, quiet decision. This time, we're framing our current actions as if they're being observed by the most important audience of all, your future self.
That is the highest form of accountability. The goal is to act in a way that your future self will look back not with shame or regret, but with profound gratitude and pride.
You're building a past you can be proud of.
You must show up. You must stay consistent. You must keep learning. You are building a history that your future self can rely on, not one they have to constantly audit and forgive.
And the source closes the entire framework with 3 powerful statements that just synthesize the enduring strength required to maintain this quiet fire.
First, a statement about inner power. You are stronger than your excuses.
Second, a statement about boundaries. You are bigger than your fears.
And finally, a statement about legacy and potential. The quiet fire within you, once fed daily, can light an extraordinary life. That internal commitment, that silent agreement, that small, consistent effort, that is the ultimate source of all external success.
Wow.
We have journeyed through this entire blueprint, which is, at its heart, a roadmap for sustainable, quiet growth. We began with that quiet decision to apply your full effort and the emotional release of turning your past into a classroom. We then built the engine by recognizing discipline as self-respect and using fear as a strategic signpost that indicates necessary growth.
From there, we established that consistency always beats raw talent, choosing to be that river that shapes the rock over time. We emphasized designing for success by optimizing our environment and our systems, moving past just having goals alone.
And then we accepted failure as essential feedback. We learned to trust patience because we are always in training. And we linked our daily grind to serving a bigger purpose, ensuring we always rise, regardless of how many times we fall.
This blueprint is now synthesized, and it's yours. But remember the core instruction from the source. If this message moved you, do not just feel it, act on it.
Yes.
We've gone into this level of detail because we respect your time and your commitment to application. Do not wait for Monday. Do not wait for the beginning of next month. The goal is to overcome inertia now.
And given our deep understanding that motivation is a result of action, not the cause of it, here is our final provocative thought for you to carry forward. And it's directly tied to immediate, practical commitment.
Okay.
What is the single, smallest, most ridiculous piece of action? An action that requires zero motivation to start, that you are willing to commit to right now, in the next 5 minutes, to prove to your future self that you started today.
If your goal is fitness, the ridiculous step is just putting your exercise shoes by the front door, even if you don't use them tomorrow. If it's writing, the ridiculous step is simply opening the document and typing today's date. If it's learning, the ridiculous step is highlighting the first sentence of the book you meant to read.
That's it.
Don't worry about the grand plan. Just take that one ridiculous, undeniable step and let the quiet fire begin to burn.
That simple, small action is all the proof you need.
Your journey has already begun.